The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Park. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Park's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyapark.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyapark.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Park.
Good morning, listeners. It's Tuesday, and of course, I'm here with you, so I'm thrilled, and I want to share that today we have a very special guest, Dr. Aimee J. Welcome, Aimee.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, no, delighted to have you. And we usually start at the beginning. Do you recall a moment or a person who left a positive mark on you when you were a child or a young girl?
Oh, goodness. Yeah. I would have to say that some of the biggest impressions that I had as a young child would have been my teachers, right? And one particular teacher that I had, his name was Mr. C, and he was a wonderful teacher that I had. I believe it would have been about fourth or fifth grade. And he was one of the first people who I think kind of helped me see that you can do anything, you can be anything, you can try things, you can fail, you can succeed. And I felt like he was one of the first people that helped me really understand the idea that there's like this infinite world of possibilities out there, and that I was the author of that, if you will. And I don't know that I could tell you, anything in particular, like there wasn't like this one moment or this one story. I think it was more the time that he spent with us and trying to find the individuality in every student that he had and found ways to bring that out and let us know that things that we were gifted in and how we could help others, and that other people might be gifted in other things, and that was okay, and that wasn't something to be sad that you didn't have, but instead relish in what you could bring and celebrate in what others could bring as well. And I just remember learning that at an early age from him, and it's something that's always kind of stuck with me.
That was an experience. It was the culmination of those moments.
Yeah.
And we forget that these role models that we have play such an important part. And that's one of the things. It's important to know that regardless wherever you are that leader, because you are impacting someone's lives. So as you grew, which career direction did your life take?
Oh, so I started out with a focus on wanting to teach. And so started out in the kindergarten classroom and realized that wasn't my forte. that it was enjoyable. I liked the kids, but I think I'm such a completionist that I needed to see things through. So then I moved into high school and I taught computers for kids in high school and did that for a few years. And then someone came to me with an opportunity to teach adults. And I thought, now that sounds really interesting, because then you can see it, you can teach it, they can turn around and go do it. It can have an impact in their organization. And I could see the full cycle of that, right? Instead of waiting 13 years for someone to go from, kindergarten to high school and then wait to see what they did in college and so on. So I started teaching in some different companies like State Farm and Country Companies and Growmark and some really big companies in Illinois where I was at. And it really helped me to be able to understand that things that you can do in the workplace can have a direct impact on the business outcomes of the organization. And that's what really got me interested in learning and development from an organization standpoint. And then from there, I moved into the healthcare side of things, doing the same thing, teaching, but within a health system, and was an educator there, and was given an opportunity after a few years there, asked if I wanted to try and lead that function, the education function. And, like a lot of people, I thought, wow, somebody sees something in me that I don't even see, right? I didn't have on my radar. I wanted to be a leader, but I really felt a sense of responsibility that if I was going to do this, I needed to have the background, the education, the expertise. So that's when I went back to school to get my master's degree and focused in on, I got a master's in organization behavior, again, because I was just really intrigued by what the people in the org do to make the org be what it is, right? Because organizations are really just a culmination of a bunch of people's talents brought together, for a common reason. And so I did that and just had opportunities to learn and grow, went back and got my Ph.D. in organization development after that. Again, really just honing in on how organizations work together, how the people, the processes, the systems, how everything comes together to either be effective or ineffective, efficient or inefficient, and learned a lot about that. And over time, in my almost 25-year career within that health system, when I left there a few years ago to come to Children's Miracle Network, I was a senior VP and a chief transformation officer. So really focused on where's the organization current state, where's the organization want to be in the future, figuring out the gaps between those two, and then figuring out what are the things we need to do to get from here to there. And that's really what org behavior and org development is, right? Whether it's the people or the systems or the mechanisms or the mission, where do you want to be? Where are you now? And what are you going to do to get there? And so I've brought all of that with me into the role that I'm in now.
And it's remarkable how your journey has evolved, where you went for something, and it comes back to that your innate passion about teaching and seeing people grow and seeing that tangible impact. And definitely I see that because being in pharmaceuticals myself, and then of course, you are this part of this beautiful machine where you're bringing that medicine to life and saving so many lives. And yet there is that completionist, like when you're talking about that touched a chord in my heart. That I want to see the impact immediately and transferring to the consulting. I definitely see that.
Yeah. And that's a big, there's a lot of people who, like, that I went to school with when I was doing my PhD, who are consulting now, and they're incredible at it. And they go out into these organizations and they consult and they help the organizations do these like quick turnarounds or massive change initiatives or project management rollouts. And for me, what I know is I think I would be a really bad consultant because there's a bit of a kind of a sting, draw blood and die, right? That they say, like, you go in, you do your thing and you leave. And I'm like, I got to see it through. I want to see the impact. I want to see the downstream. That's why I love going and visiting, going into our member hospitals or going to our corporate partners and talking to the employees, because I get to see it in action. And that seeing that in it allows me, it fuels me to keep it going. And I often tell my team that, instead of that be like the sting, draw blood and die, now I'm like, I go in and I pick up the pollen like off the flowers. Like, so I'll go into a hospital and I'll see the things that they're doing with the money that we're raising for them. And I pick all of that up and I take it with me when I go to the next corporate partner or to the next big event. And then I can share with the donors and the fundraisers and the people that are supporting the programs to say, like, here, let me give you a little bit of this, of what I saw recently when I was over here. And so I love that. And I think, you said it's kind of important to know what things drive you and what motivates you and what matters to you. And that was one of the things that I learned early on about myself in my career, is that I need to see the impact of the work that we're doing. And this job affords such an opportunity to do that on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And that talks about bringing authenticity in your leadership, bringing authenticity in your life. So there's so many times what happens is that, especially as you're rising in the ranks, it can be a long, arduous road.
Yeah.
And so many of our women professionals will say that there is still that ceiling that they face sometimes. So can you share with us how you have maintained your authenticity and how you have experienced any adversities along the way, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so the second part of the question I'll go to first. I feel like I have been incredibly fortunate in my career, where I don't know that I've seen that as much as I've heard from other people, in terms of feeling like there were limitations. Maybe there were times where pay was a little different, but I don't know that I would have known that, right? I mean, I feel like I had so many opportunities open to me, whether it was going back to school, becoming a mom, being able to still do all the things with the school and the PTA and the baseball and the cheerleading, and do all those things while also having a very robust career at the same time. And I think that I know that it happens to people, because I see it and I talk to friends and I hear stories. But I think I was fortunate that for almost 25 years of my career, I worked in an organization. Healthcare has a lot of women in it, like a lot. And so maybe I just chose the right field, but I worked with so many individuals where it was about the talent that you brought to the table, not about whether or not you were male or female. And I worked in teams that were just really great blends of people. And it wasn't just, female clinicians and male non-clinicians. It was a mix of both. And that, I think, has been really helpful for me, because I think there are enough challenges in the world that we go through,
Of course.
that whether we're male or female shouldn't, have to contribute to that. So I feel very blessed by that. So I'll say that first. Secondly, I would say, when you think about the concept of authenticity, to me, I think sometimes you'll see people say authenticity is like a leadership trait, or even in some of the competency models, it's considered a competency. I don't look at, like, people say, like, well, are you a servant leader? Are you a transformational leader? Are you an authentic leader? And to me, I can't differentiate those, right? To me, authenticity isn't a style leadership. It's the foundation for all leadership, right? Whatever style that is. And as a senior vice president in an organization, when there were 9 other senior VPs all reporting to the CEO, and you kind of had your camaraderie of people and peers that you could work with and bounce things off of. And then you move into a CEO role for the first time. And, there's a quote out there that being the CEO is the loneliest job in the world, right? Because you don't have the peers in the same way. You have a board in a lot of times, but that is, a different relationship. And so when I became CEO, there were a couple of things that I kept repeating to myself. One is, this is a marathon and not a sprint. Right. And that was something I said a lot during my Ph.D. work, because I was working full time, raising 2 kids that were in junior high at the time, trying to finish my coursework, write my dissertation, do my research, everything. And I kept saying, this is a marathon and not a sprint, because if I tried to sprint that whole thing, I would run out. Right. So that's kind of what I did when I got here. I was like, this is a marathon and not a sprint. Like this is what I'm going to do for my career. Right. And so while there's so much I want to do, I need to take the time to do it right and do it well. And so the Peter Senge quote of go slow to go fast, right? There's a lot of stuff that we needed to do a little slowly at the beginning to prepare ourselves for where we go next. And so the other thing that I told myself as I got in here is what people don't need from me is perfection, right? What they need is presence. They need someone who's going to be here, who's going to be rooted in empathy for this work that we're doing, while also being focused on outcomes of what it is that we need to accomplish. And so I think sometimes when you go into a new role, I firmly believe that no one is ever fully ready for their next job, right? It's, do you have the transferable skills to do it? But I had to come into it and think, how do I show up in a way that isn't about like being the best CEO or the perfect CEO, but being the CEO that this organization needs right now, and then let me grow and develop with the organization into what we need to be together for the future. And that allowed me to give myself some grace. It allowed me to ask the questions, to be like, I'm new here, let me do this. But I think doing all of that, I think it helped to create some trust among the team. I think it created momentum because it was a snowball instead of a shotgun, right? And then I think it created some clarity because I really felt it was important for me to get to know the org and the people in it, and for them to get to know me before we tried to dive in and do the really hard work together. And so I didn't see any other way to be able to do this job than to come at it from an authentic leadership standpoint, right? And just be me. That's all I got. Like, that's all I can bring to the table. Yeah.
Aimee, it's almost like you hit the nail on the head, because think about it. You didn't just kind of go there that, oh, I'm the CEO.
No.
2 to 3 things that stood out for me was that I wanted to be the CEO that organization needs.
Yeah.
You did not bring your agenda. You did not bring...
Didn't have one. Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't bring your ego there.
Yeah.
You, in your authenticity, and like you, as you mentioned, it's the foundation. You were there to support other people. Another thing that definitely resonated with me was that you build the trust.
Yeah.
That trust is the first thing. You're bringing the team along.
Yeah.
So then it's not a lonely journey. It's a together journey.
Yeah. And I think, all organizations, when a new CEO comes in, have their own kind of backstories or things, if you will. And, I would say for Children's Miracle Network, it was in a bit of a challenging time, as you can imagine. In February of 2020, the previous CEO passed away following a bicycle accident. So young, charismatic, well-loved, renowned leader who one day was here and the next was gone, right?
Oh,
so
sorry
talk
for the
about an
loss.
organization just, woof, just everything just turned upside down. And they were very fortunate that there was a leader who had been in the organization. Terry Nestel had been here for, I think at that point, over 35 years. So a good portion of the organization's history. Terry's retirement was on the horizon. Like, she knew when she was going to retire, but they asked her if she would be willing to step in as an interim. They tried to, start a search, but what happened in March of 2020, then the pandemic came, right? And you've got an organization that is raising money through all these retail relationships and through hundreds of colleges and universities and radio stations and golf programs and all these things. And all that shuts down, right? And so now you're dealing with, just essential services are open, and then your hospitals can't focus on fundraising because they've diverted all their resources to, take temperatures at the front door of the ER, or, those kind of things. So talk about turmoil, right, that happened in the org. So when they started in early 23, the search for the CEO, it was an organization that really people were just kind of hanging on, just being like,
oh,
wow,
those were tough times.
Really challenging times, right? And then, so many things changed during the pandemic. Everyone used to be in one building here, the one I'm in Salt Lake City. Now about 70% of the people are spread out around the country, because when they said everyone go home, people were like, bye, just kind of, went in different places. And, you saw a lot of those things happen. So it was an organization that there was just a lot to recover from. And the former CEO, then she's doing her best and she's making all this things happen to keep the organization going. And then she got a cancer diagnosis.
Oh,
And then,
no.
right? Yeah. So, I mean, I think the team, like the way they explained it to me is it just felt like not a 1-2 punch, but like a 1, 2, 3, 4, and they just kind of wanted, like, can we just stop and catch our breath and get back to who we are and what we're doing? So I think when I came in, there was a little bit of like okay, this is some stabilization that's going to get us on some stable ground. But we also know this means change because they hired someone who's a chief transformation officer and is all about change. So now what does this mean for us, right?
Yeah.
So it was a time of there was still a little bit of an organization in mourning, an organization in transition, an organization in repair, but then also an organization that was like very hopeful, excited, and ready for what was going to be next. So, I had to come in and assess that. I can tell you, I remember, the interview process was probably about 6 months long. And in one of the last rounds of interviews, there were a couple of questions that got asked of me by board members that when I went to go answer them, I had the moment, and you've had these moments, I'm sure a lot of your listeners has, where I'm like, I can either give them like what is probably the right answer, that someone would tell you in an interview guide, or I can just give them the authentic me answer. And if they don't like that answer, then I'm probably not right for this job, right? So it became very clear to me, I'm just going to be authentically me, because in the end, if I'm going to take this job and move across the country and change everything I've known for the last 25 years, it better be a right fit. And so I have to show up as me. So there are two questions I'd love to share with you that were just kind of amusing, that really helped me say, this is what my first 100 days need to look like. The first question was, someone said, you've not been in a CEO role yet. A lot of things about your background and experience tell us that you're ready for one. But if we gave you this job and we met with you after 100 days, what kind of deliverables would you have for us? What are you going to get done in your first 100 days? Right. And the ChatGPT answer is probably going to be like, give them this list of all these things. And I sat there for a moment and I said, honestly, I think what I'd give you in the first 100 days is my assessment of the org. Because what I really need to do in that first 100 days is just get to know it and understand it, and tell you where I think some of the challenges, the opportunities, the missed, kind of the things left on the table are. But I'm not going to deliver. I'm not going to be done. I'm not going to change anything. And in healthcare, we subscribe to the Deming healthcare theory. And one of those theories is that if you go into something and you interfere in it without information, that is tampering. And so I was like, I don't want to go in and interfere. So I said, what you're going to get from me in the first 100 days is a really valuable assessment of this organization, where it's at today, who it could be in the future, and a starting point of what do we need to do to get there. And then we'll develop a strategic plan and figure that out. They liked that answer, right? So that was a good one. The second one was, they said, well, since you haven't been a CEO at all before, it's a really big transition. And have you thought at all about how you would make that transition? And I sat there for a minute, and then I kind of tongue in cheek, I said, well, I wrote a book on it. And they were like, what? And I was like, well, my dissertation, my PhD is in org development, but my dissertation is in healthcare CEOs in transition. And it was a qualitative study of, healthcare CEOs and what they needed to do to transition. And I developed a model for how to transition and what do you do in, your first 18 months. And so, yeah, I thought about it a little bit, like I have a book about it. So it was really funny because both, like, I was like, gosh, is that going to sound arrogant? But then at the same time, I was like, these are the things they need to know. But
well, you're being genuine. You had
I just was like, yeah. But here's one of the things I did. I that model that I developed for healthcare CEOs, I used that model in my transition, but I told no one. So like not even my exec team, my senior leadership team, but I used it to a T. So there's some operating behaviors, and then there are some kind of tenets, right, of things that you need to be doing or thinking about. And I went through that model over the first 15 months in the org. So the listening and learning tour I did, my first 100 days, came straight out of my dissertation. I would edit that to say listening, learning, and leading, because you do have to lead in the first 100 days. And in my model, I was like, oh, you listen and you learn. You still have to make some decisions and lead. But so I used a lot of that. And then about 15 months later, I was with my senior leadership team at a retreat. That's all the VPs and above. And we talked through, here's what we've done in the last 12 months. Here's how we've built this team. Here's the work we've done together. Here's how I've realigned your roles. Here's how we've handled some of the people who weren't right for the organization and our long-term success. So we went through all of it. And then I pulled up my model on the screen and I said, this is what we just did, right? Like, hey, it works, right? So I was kind of like the guinea pig for it, but I didn't want to come in and be like, here's my model. This is what we're going to do. Everyone get behind it. You know, it was quiet and it was intentional and it was impactful and it moved us forward and is still to this day continuing to move us forward. But I think that would have been very different had I come in and be like, here's a copy of my dissertation. I'd like you guys to all read pages 140 to 210. And this is what we're going to do in the next 15 months. Again, I think it's just that being authentic and being who you are and showing up and doing the things that you think will help move the team forward, because moving that team forward then helps move the org forward. Moving the org forward drives that mission. And then that's what we're here to do, right? Is to help the kids.
Absolutely. And I love how you said that. I just didn't come in and say that, hey, read these pages. You demonstrated respect as you were unpacking and bringing in the philosophy. You pulled everyone and then you shared, which is like you build a trust and then you're giving the model like, hey, now it's tried and true.
Yeah. Because you can imagine, right, as a new leader coming in, if someone like drops this thing on your desk and like, this is our playbook, then they're kind of like, well, how do you, right? And so for me, it was such a learning experience, right? Because as I went through, in my listening and learning tour, I interviewed about 180 people. So everything from frontline employees, I did 35% of them in the first 100 days. I'm now up to like 85%. I'm almost through the entire org, meeting one-on-one with all of them. Interviewed board members, CEOs of, our major corporations like, Costco's CEO and Marriott's CEO, and people that have been partners of ours for a long time, golfers and gamers and dancers, people who raise money for us, frontline employees at a Walmart or a Ace Hardware. And in doing that and talking with the hospital leaders, the CEOs, the chief development officers, the program directors who are out there being the boots on the ground with our partners, I learned so much about the organization. And it kind of became like another little like mini dissertation, right? I started capturing all this information. And even now, almost 2 years later, we'll be in a meeting, and we were just in a meeting last week and they were talking about a rollout of a new product that we're going to be doing. And I said, hey, I've got a couple of questions. Do we know if it syncs in and integrates with the Blackbaud system? Yeah. Do we know if it has a mobile? Yeah. And I was like, okay, those are things that I heard in my listening and learning tour 2 years ago, and now we're solving for them, right? So it's like you're taking all this data and all these things you're learning to say, like, this organization has been really, really successful, but it also has so much potential in front of it. And so how do you ball that up, so to speak, right? So you can do something with it. And that's where I think then that momentum I talked about, right? That's where that snowball just starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because then you just create this momentum that people want to get behind.
Yeah.
Because they believe in the mission, not they want to get behind because like I need to make the new CEO happy and get on her good side. I didn't need any of that.
You added meaning to people's work, and there's nothing more powerful than that, especially with our new generations, Gen Z and
Oh,
millennials,
they want
they
that
see.
so bad, right? They're so intrinsically motivated, right?
Mhm.
That they want to know, like, one of the questions I would ask them, I had the same 6 questions I asked during my interviews, had some variations for different types, but same 6 that went across. And one of them was related to what they saw as a challenge. And one of the things I heard from a lot of our employees here is like, I'm really busy. I'm doing a lot of stuff. I think I'm doing the right things, but I'm not 100% sure if it's connected to what we're trying to achieve. And I don't know how to measure that and make sure that I'm making a difference. And I want to do that. So we've implemented, we're actually right now in the second year of every employee in the organization having individual personal goals that roll up to their department goals, that roll up to their leader goals, to the org goals. And it is so incredible to watch people get behind that. And it's all visible. Like I can click into the system and I can go click on one employee and track that goal all the way up and see who else it links up to. And man, the energy that they are getting out of that, or they can go in and like type in the word social media and see anyone in the organizations whose goals have the word social media in it. So they make sure they're connect, right? They want to be a part of something.
Yeah.
And we have the tools and mechanism to help that happen. And so all this great work was going on before I got here. I'm coming in and putting some systems and some processes and approaches around it to help make it that much more valuable or that much more impactful.
And it's the alignment and interconnectivity
Yeah,
that you're building. So
that's
it's
what people want. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And if you're open to sharing,
Mm-hmm.
this would be so helpful for our audience. Like, what are those 6 questions that
Yeah.
people can use for the
Yeah.
interview?
Hold on, I will tell you. Let me open my OneNote. And so I'll tell them to you. I mostly have them memorized because I do them so often. So the first one is related to I'm from the school of David Cooperrider. He was one of my professors. He's the person who invented appreciative inquiry as a inquiry topic. And so David's approach is you always start from an appreciative inquiry and start people on the positive. So shout out to David Cooperrider and Benedictine University. So I start out very appreciatively, which what is one area of our organization, can be area you're in, area somewhere else in the org that you think is working exceptionally well and is getting the results that we need. And I love that question because people they get so much pride, they get so much energy, they get excitement. It also helps me know like, ooh, don't touch that. Like that's going good. And then we do the okay, let's flip the coin over. And what's an area where you see something that's in need of improvement or change within the organization? And then we move into what I call my untapped potential question. So it's actually the same question, but I ask it to them in 3 different ways. And I say, you could like their lenses are different, right? Depending on how long they've been here. So I ask them, is there anything that we used to do in the organization during your tenure that we stopped doing and you wonder why and should we consider doing it again? Right? Like we used to take our champions to the White House every year and we stopped doing, right? So they want it like it's their idea to like that sacred cow that they remember that they love to
Yeah.
make sure they can tell me about it. So anything that we used to do, we stopped doing. The second one is something that we talk about all the time. And the idea is like always on the table, but we've just never kind of pulled the trigger and executed on it, right? But we talk about it a lot. So that's the second one. And then the third is there something that you see other charitable organizations doing? I don't call them competitors. I call them cause partners because I think anyone who's raising money for other people or we all care about the same thing, particularly when it comes to kids' health. So is there anything that another charity is doing that you wonder why we don't do? Right. And so
Mm.
that has been really helpful. So that question is my untapped potential. But if you've only been here for 6 months, you can probably answer the third question a lot easier than you can the first 2, right? So I want to make sure it's inclusive enough of everyone. Then I ask them a question to pretend like they got a phone call from a friend. Could be a professional colleague, someone that goes to, parent from their kids' school, and they say, "Hey, I saw on LinkedIn, Indeed, whatever, that CMN has a job opening for XYZ that aligns with my background and experience. I'm thinking about applying. What's it like to work there?" So
Mm.
I say, "How do you describe us to someone who isn't us?"
Ah.
Right? And what's so great is people will be like, oh, I do this all the time. Like they're like, it happens to them. And then I follow up with that of, is there one thing that you'd like to see us change before you'd want us to bring someone that you know, trust, and care about into the org? Right. And then I ask them, and this question is a little less relevant now. It was more relevant in the first 100 days, but I ask them, I say, a CEO transition is a big change for any organization. It can bring up a lot of emotions. So if you had one word about how you're feeling right now about the future of the org, what would that word be? What was really great is with about like a 90% confidence variable, I got hopeful, energetic, excited. Like I got these words, cautiously optimistic. They would want to hyphenate a word. So that word, and then after they give me the word, then I say why that word, and then they explain it. And then the last question, and this is my favorite question, and I ask this question, you probably do this as well, but I just say, you and I were going to be able to talk today. We've had this on the schedule. And as you were thinking about our conversation today, now that we're done, is there anything that you were hoping would come up that you would have a chance to share with me that we haven't already talked about? Right. And that is like the ultimate, it's not just a door opener, it's like a double door opener, right? Because it lets them share with me anything that's kind of on their mind, anything that they, it might be, I really like our benefit package, or have we considered a different intro? Like it could be anything at all. It could be they want to tell me how much they love their leader, or how much they like being able to work remote. Like I never know what it's going to be, but it just opens the door. And so I love that question. And I use that actually quite a bit in other scenarios. But so those are the questions that I go through that are for everyone. There's different ones for board members and, different audiences, but for everybody, that's what I did. And I asked those questions hundreds of times in my first 100 days. I kept a OneNote on every person. I would take notes and I would tell them that. I always said, it's confidential. It's anonymous, but don't be surprised if you hear me, I might be on stage or in a group and say, well, in my listening and learning tour, I heard, and that means it's a theme, right? If you're like, yeah, I said that to her, so did other people, right? And so it was really helpful as a way to get to know the org. And I enjoyed doing it so much. I did my kind of 100-day report out to the board in April of 24. We started developing the strategic plan, and by August, I was missing them. I was like, I want to keep doing those. So now I do them every Friday. I do 2 every Friday, and I still continue to do them and connect with people, because for me, it's another lens of which I can see the organization that I don't get to see it through as the CEO. And so it's been incredibly valuable for me and very protected time, right? That I want to make sure I can do.
Yeah. Aimee, you have touched my heart.
Oh,
and I could keep on talking to you. So tell us about Children's Miracle Network and how you're supporting. And, if people wanted to kind of be part of your journey, how could they?
So for people who don't know, Children's Miracle Network, we are a national not-for-profit organization. And what we do is we help raise money for children's healthcare. And the way that we do that is pretty unique. So we raise money through both corporate partnerships and through programs. And so I've alluded a little bit to some of those corporate partnerships. It's companies that you know and love and shop at and go to. And those corporate partners, whether they do Roundup for Change, or we have over 100 corporate partners. Most of them people know about, are the ones that, like, you're in the store and they want you to round up their change. But we have things like Night Swift Transportation and McLean Distribution, who we get a penny per mile that they drive, or, so there's other kind of hidden behind the scenes partners as well that help raise money for us through different events and partnerships. And so we raise money through our corporate programs, and then through our corporate partnerships, and then we raise money through our programs. And our programs, one of those is a golfing program, which is with Jack and Barbara Nicholas. That's called Play Yellow. That is hundreds of thousands of golfers coming together to raise money in various ways through tournaments, events, birdie bashes, things like that. We have a radiothon program where we kind of take over the airways, if you will, for days at a time to help raise money for the hospitals in those radio markets. We also then have a dance program, which is for our college students. So it's really a campus program that happens on over 400 college campuses, but they do what's called a dance marathon where they dance for 12, 14, 36, 28 hours. And these kids raise almost $25 million a year at these 400 schools, right? I get so frustrated when people get down on this next generation because I'm like, you need to go meet the kids that I meet when I go to dance marathons and see these kids who are just giving it their all for the generation behind them. So we've got that, and then we've got a direct mail program where we directly reach out to people on behalf of our hospitals. And then we have a gaming program, which is people who video game or play board games. Almost 35,000 participants who raise money. They've raised almost $10 million this year. I think today we're going to hit $10 million that they've raised all through peer-to-peer fundraising where they play video games and people support them. So, I mean, people raising money in the most unique ways, but there's a couple of things that make this really unique about who we are as an organization. So we spearhead all those relationships, all those partnerships, all those programs, and then we divide that money back out to the hospitals. And there are 170 children's hospitals that are part of Children's Miracle Network. And so those member hospitals are in United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico, and they get money dispersed back out to them. And what we do is money raised local stays local. So you said you're in North Carolina. So if you go to a Dairy Queen in North Carolina, and you donate money there, you round up your change, or you do a Dip It for Kids Day and pay $1 to dip your ice cream cone, that is going to go to your hospital in your local community, to your member hospital. It doesn't come back to Salt Lake. 100% of that money stays local, comes back to us so we can redistribute it and get it back out to the right people on behalf of those partners. And so people often say, well, why wouldn't the local hospital just work with them? Well, Walmart, largest employer in the world, they need a charity, right? They need someone that they can connect with, that can coordinate and do this across their thousands of Walmart, Sam's Club stores. Same thing with Costco and those. So we're the person who coordinates all of that fundraising and then distribute that money. It goes back out locally. And then here's the beauty of it, and this is the thing I love, is the money gets used based on that hospital leadership's decision of how they use the money. Right? So it's not for one diagnosis. It's not for one particular type of illness. It is for how the hospitals see fit. So some of them use it on charity care. Some of them will use it on education. Some of them will use it on new facilities. Some of them use it on research. Some of them use it to support families so they have a hotel to stay in when their kids here having surgery or whatever it may be. The hospitals decide their highest and best need of that money, and then they report back to us so that we make sure that money is being used appropriately. And I'm so proud to tell you that last year we raised, in 2024, we raised $464 million, right?
Wow.
In 1 year. Yeah, in 1 year. And that we are just over $9.5 billion that we've raised in the 43-year history of the org. But I'm pretty confident we're going to get to 10 billion here soon. It's probably going to be about 45 years that it will take us to get to the first 10 billion. I think we can get to the next 10 billion in 12 to 15 years, right? It's going to go a lot faster because we're scaling, we're growing, and we're expanding. And quite frankly, our children's hospitals need us now more than ever, right? There's so much going on with reimbursement, with, it doesn't matter who's in office, whatever political landscape you have going on, there's always changes that impact the funding for healthcare, sometimes to the benefit, sometimes to the negative. But for the most part, people don't even know that children's healthcare needs money. So when we did our research, 50% of the people researched said, well, yeah, I'd give to children's healthcare, but do they need it? Aren't the hospitals fine? Doesn't the government pay for that? And doesn't insurance pay for that? And it actually doesn't. There's a lot of unreimbursed care. If you've ever had a kid in the hospital, or your listeners have had a child who had to go to the hospital, emergency department, surgery, any of those types of things, there's a role in children's hospitals. It's unique to children. It's called child life specialist. And those are individuals who are educated and certified to provide not care for children in terms of clinical care, but they provide the emotional, educational, and cognitive support that kids need to get through that experience. So let's say that they're going to have a surgery and they're scared about all the things, or we need to deliver bad news to them and we want to make sure that that's done in an appropriate way. Maybe they're going to get intubated. And so they're going to wake up with this tube down their throat, and because it needs to breathe for them, or, they're going to have different things going on. These child life specialists are educated and informed of how to prepare kids. They have little fake MRI machines made out of Legos so they can tell a kid, that you're not going to feel an MRI, but it's going to be noisy, or, whatever those may be. Child life specialists do art therapy, music therapy. They do all of the different, we have the pet therapy programs, or facility dogs, which are actually dogs that under doctor's orders go visit kids to help them maybe walk or get a cord in or things like that. It's some of the most incredible work that happens in children's hospitals, and it's not reimbursable. Right? So hospitals can't do it.
Wow.
Without philanthropic dollars. And so that is a big part of where we come in, is we provide the funding that the hospitals then utilize for their staffing to run those programs and all the equipment, the playrooms, the things that they need to do that in. And what it does is within the hospitals, it creates these, we call them safe spaces, meaning that the doctor or nurse can walk by and say hi to a kid if they're in there in the playroom, but no procedures can happen in there. No news can be delivered in there, right? That's where the kid gets to go and play. And then we have a space where we do the procedures and the other things. Hospitals can't afford that.
Right. No, that is so powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the work your organization is doing. Thank you, Aimee, for what you are doing. So wonderful listeners, I'm sure, as I'm going to be doing, go to Children's Miracle Network Hospitals.org and donate what you can. And also that roundup thing.
It's so easy to say yes.
Just so easy. So
I know.
Whatever works for you, just do that, because
that's what we tell people, is every single dollar counts, right? If it's 70 cents, it's 70 cents. It's going to add up to the person in line in front of you and the person in line and behind you. And, Walmart doesn't get to write that off on their taxes. That's coming directly from you. It is truly a donation that is going to go back to the Children's Miracle Network member hospital in your community and make a difference. And, I'm the mother of 2 children who were served by a Children's Miracle Network hospital. They're now 28 and 30, and they are healthy and they are happy. But I spent the most challenging 7 months of my life combined in the hospital with those 2, trying every day to not make it another day. They put us through the ringer as premature infants. And so I know as a mother what it meant. And I have taken what I would submit to you as the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my entire life and turned it into my life's passion and calling, to be able to make sure that we can be there. We see 72 kids a minute, right? 72 kids a minute come through the doors of our hospitals. So just in the time we've been talking, every minute 72 kids are coming through the door, but I'm just as proud to say we raise $833 a minute, and we just want to see that number keep going up. And so any support that your listeners can put behind that is absolutely appreciated. And as you said, they can go to our website, and not only can they donate there, they can donate to help support the whole cause, the mission of CMN, or they can donate and pick it to go directly to the hospital in their community if they have a calling that's, feels really specific to the one in their hometown as well, because we know that healthcare is local and we want to be there for everyone, no matter where they live.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for all the work you're doing. We need that. And thank you, audience, for being part of our journey, because without you, we would not be able to do it. So I'm sure that you're going to go head over, or as Aimee mentioned, pick a hospital that's close to your home and then do that.
Yeah, if they go to our website, they can just put in their zip code or their city, and it will pull up the CMN hospital. They can make their donation right there. It's all secure, and we will get it directly to that hospital for them. 100% of it will go to them. It also, it lets people be a part of something bigger than themselves. Because we either all were a kid at one time, we have kids, we know kids. When people say, "Oh, I haven't experienced a children's hospital," I'm like, you will, right? Like it's always, it's your neighbor, your friend, your coworker. And they're our future, right? Like when our kids thrive, our communities thrive, our economies thrive, it sounds cliche to say change kids' health, change the future, but it's more than a tagline for us. It's true, right? We can make a difference in the world of what comes next by making a difference in the healthcare of the kids that need it today. And so we just appreciate the opportunity to be able to share about that with your listeners.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And thank you, wonderful listeners, for supporting us, because you know that we are here to support you, and together we are here to support our children. So I invite you to do that and share any way we can support you. And thank you, Juan, for making the show technically possible. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Park. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Park shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyapark.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyapark.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.